26 years old, not 11. Not 11. My skinny jeans are baggy. You know what I mean? Damn it.
And I love my father, man. My father's a beautiful man. You have to understand, he's a musician, and he's happy that I'm a comedian, but he doesn't think it's a job. And he said it to me the other day. He goes, "I'm very happy you make people laugh, but it's one, not a job. Two, you know, finish high school, and three, you know, have a girlfriend. You the joke, Mikey."
What do you think makes that joke work?
My face. I don't know. I don't know why it works. I'm little, man.
Now, guys, Nick obviously makes fun of his size and his act. Mike, is there anything about yourself that you poke fun at in your act?
My inability to be smart all the time. You know, sometimes being a dumbass doesn't work all the time.
That's a pretty smart answer, though.
That was pretty good. Me being dumb
good.
is a smart answer. That's not bad. Hey, I dig it. I don't mind.
Mark, what about yourself do you often poke fun at in your act?
Like about myself?
About yourself, yeah.
I make I think a looks thing, I guess, yeah.
About your looks?
Yeah, like people think I'm high all the time.
But you're not.
No, I'm not.
But that's something that you mock about yourself?
Yeah, the way I talk.
So the fact that you look high and the way that you talk.
Yeah, yeah. Up until like I was like 16.
16?
Actually, later. That's why I didn't want to get into stand-up. Because I didn't want to hear my voice projected on a microphone. Well, I worked in a restaurant. We had to call orders out on a microphone. That was the most I got out of it. But yeah, no. I just you know, growing up, people say I used to talk out of my nose a lot.
Very interesting that you then went into a career choice where you kind of talk all the time. Was that something that you kind of did to cope with that sort of thing where people would mock it? So you kind of thought, I'll go into this career to kind of prove them wrong?
No, not at all. It was kind of a fluke that I got into stand-up in the first place. But I found out that the stuff that I didn't like about myself is what excelled me in stand-up, I think.
So Nick, we saw the clip of you. We saw that you were obviously making fun of your size. Do you feel like, I know when I was a kid, I was always a fat kid. And I would always be the first one to sort of make the joke about being fat. And it took that power away from those other kids that would, you know, call me names or whatever. And I would use it to my advantage to get the first laugh. Is that something that you did as a kid and translated into your stand-up?
Yeah, I think so. Like I was ultimately like I was a pretty quiet, shy kind of dude, and I tried to stay out of people's hair because I'm still little. I don't want my ass beat by anyone.
Sure.
So I was quiet. But if anything did happen, you know, I would give myself a jab and then give the other guy back a jab because you can't. I was like, you know, Eminem's 8 Mile.
Yep.
Like when he just dissed the shit out of himself and you had nothing else to say to him. That's like what I do.
Okay.
So like I've already said everything bad about myself, so you have nothing.
Right.
So I'll destroy your life now.
Away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially when you're a kid, you're real self-conscious about everything. Like, I don't know if you can see, but I got freckles on my face. Everyone likes making fun of a freckled-faced kid, and it's a weird thing, because I used to go like, hey, why are you making fun of me? I didn't choose to have freckles. It's not a choice. And then that's why you stop bullying kids, because I remember people would make fun of kids for having asthma or glasses. Who the hell makes fun of kids for having asthma? You know what I'm saying? Because the kid can't run. You'd be like, hey, you can't run, Jeffrey. What a loser. It's not his fault. He can't breathe, the poor kid. In the same sense, yeah, with my freckles. And I never let kids make fun of me. It was too popular and cool in my head to let a kid make fun of me and without making fun of him back. It's too witty as a kid, especially when you realize that you're the funny kid and other kids aren't the funny kids and they're just picking on you. Yeah. And then you're like, oh, you're a loser and your dad's a drunk. Get the hell out of my face. Get the hell out of my face, you punk.
Nick, what percentage of your act would you say is self-deprecating?
Ooh. Wow. I don't know. Maybe 50%?
50%?
50%, yeah.
Okay.
50%.
And Mike?
Self-deprecation. Unless it's coming from my mother making fun of me. Personally, I don't make fun of myself too much, but my mother in my act makes fun of me all kinds. So my mom's like 30-40% of my act sometimes. So I would say sometimes at its peak, like almost 40% can be self-deprecating sometimes.
Okay. And Mark, how much of your act would you say is self-deprecating?
Probably like 10%. It's just the beginning.
So you just start off with...
Because I think, yeah, like I feel like stand-up's based a lot off judging people in first appearances. So I just address what everyone's thinking and sees, and then now that we cleared the air, I just move on.
How do you deal with that? Is that something
You work on
consciously
it.
think
I
about?
worked on my walk to the stage for about 6 months.
Really?
Just the walk. I didn't even care about what I was talking about. Because I felt that before I hit the mic, people already had an idea who I was.
Sure.
And it was not who I was. So then I figured if I had a certain style of a walk, it's kind of like a casual, like, why am I here type walk, then people would be like, okay, we can relax. Because I am a big guy, right? And so it's kind of a balance thing.
And now, Nick, we saw that clip there. You said 50% of your act is self-deprecating. Do you use the same jokes with different audiences? How much of your act changes with respect to your self-deprecating humor, audience to audience?
I normally start off pretty similar because, like you said, like when you go on stage, people are already perceiving you a certain way. So I normally have like my kind of thing that I do to be like, hey, I know, you kind of see what I am. I acknowledge that you see who I am, but it's not who I am, and then go on a different path. And that's, the starting's normally the same, but after that will change depending on the audience.
Is there a certain line that you go to with that humor with each audience that you do?
Like, what do you mean a line? Like, if there's anything I won't do or will do?
Yeah, is there any kind of certain part of making fun of yourself where you think, oh no, I've sort of gone too far, where maybe they, instead of laughing, they start to feel bad for you, or they start to think, hey, maybe this guy's having like a breakdown or something.
Well, I don't think that lowly of myself, like that. I think that I would never get into where people are like, oh God, I'm so sorry for your life. Like I hope not. Like I don't feel that way about myself, right? And plus I have a girlfriend, man. I don't have no one to impress. I'll say anything. I don't give a damn. Give a damn.
Mike, how about yourself?
Yeah, I think there's a line that you can feel out with every crowd where you're gonna, I mean, some crowds will really like a joke about you blowing your load with a woman early, and then there's gonna be a crowd where everyone's like gonna gasp as soon as you go, hey, one time I was with this woman, everyone's gonna go, oh, is he making fun of his own sex life in front of everyone? That's terrible. Yeah. And there's gonna be crowds where they're like, yeah, but. So, I mean, it's all about personal choice when it comes to that stuff. Sometimes I'll cross the line and sometimes I won't, depending how I feel. But there is an eventual line where you don't, I guess, personally, I wouldn't want to make fun of myself.
Sure.
Yeah,
Mark,
yeah.
Would you agree with that? Are you aware of kind of a line there with?
I'm aware of the line, but I just won't talk about, like, I don't talk about any kind of sexual stuff, because it's just awkward for me, like, to even talk about it right now. And then,
I think it's awkward for everybody. For
yeah. And then, like, personal. I don't really get too personal on stage. Like, I don't, like, yeah.
I just want to say something, though.
Yeah.
One of the funniest moments of my life was when this guy was living with me for like 2 months, and he actually did tell us sex stories.
Oh, wow.
Literally. It was one of the funniest moments of my life.
I heard about
of
it.
my life, man.
I have heard this.
Of my life, literally. Like, it's the funniest shit. I don't know why this guy doesn't talk about it.
It's too cool for school.
Too cool for school.
Oh, man.
He's too alone on
You know what I found
the
out too? You know Mo Ishmael? He recorded that on his phone.
Wow.
That when we had that conversation.
Are you serious?
Yeah, and see, he has it like on his computer at home. He said,
Wow.
no, it's on his mom's phone. It's on his mom's phone.
Mom's nice.
On his mom's phone, she has a conversation
She's
from
gonna
like 2
listen to
years
it
ago.
one day. What's that this on the most phone? So whatever, I was with this girl one time and she had a penis. Hey, that's
So,
good.
How about yourself, Chris? Is there a line that you won't go to with your self-deprecating humor?
Not really. I say some pretty like bad shit about myself.
So just whatever, doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't know. Just because when I started getting into comedy, I started probably watching stand-up around like 14, and, like hardcore watching like a lot of stand-up and stuff, and then I just noticed how like Richard Pryor and like all those guys would just talk about literally anything that happens in their lives. Like this guy's talking about like his wife leaving him and like having a heart attack and like shooting out like the tires so his wife wouldn't leave him and stuff, like burning on fire from doing drugs and stuff like that, running down the street and like.
How could I feel bad about talking about myself?
Yeah,
This guy's going off.
Yeah, you know. So I'm like, this guy, like, he has such crazy stuff happening to him. I'm like, yo, I'm just trying to make people relate to me. So like, like everything I say, I know other people experience.
Sure.
It's just I'm trying to make people go
Open to
like,
it.
yeah, you know, like trying to make people be like, yo, it's a part of life. Who cares? It might be something that's gross part of life, but like we shouldn't ignore it. It's still
all
like
happens,
funny.
Still
Do
funny.
you think that the more personal something is to you, the funnier that somebody else will find it?
Yeah, well, maybe like just because something's personal to you doesn't mean everyone's gonna find it funny.
I think if you
But-
reach the right level with the audience,
Yeah, but like
and you can get more detailed, the more personal it is, and
Do you think it'll come across better being so personal because you know it, you know, the kind of inside and out, and the way that you're going to tell it? Will it come across sort of in a better light if it's more personal for you?
yeah, definitely. And I feel people just kind of appreciate the honesty, kind of, you know.
They do indeed.
Sure.
They do indeed. That's one
Nick,
of
would
the
you
things.
agree with
Yeah,
that?
absolutely, man.
Mike?
Yeah, especially when it comes down to like things that people can agree with when it comes to personal things. Like I talk a lot about my mom and how I have immigrant parents who are against drug use. And always after the show, there's always a couple people come up to me. Doesn't matter what their background is. They could be Polish, Russian, or something, Indian. They're like, yeah, I have immigrant parents too, and my parents are exactly the same. So it's like it's a personal thing, and I'm letting myself go. But it's only to get that reaction back from the audience where they're like, hey, I can connect with you too on that same thing.
Yeah.
Is there ever a time where you sort of wrote a joke about something that happened to you, but it really didn't happen to you, and you said it and you just didn't get that feeling and,
Yeah.
sort of felt like it was due
That's
to
a
that
terrible
lack
feeling
of
if you
Yeah.
write a joke and you can't connect with it because you know on the inside that it's not 100% true or the way that you're saying it isn't 100% the way it happened. You'll feel it, man, and the audience feels it right away. That's one thing that's an amazing thing about being a comedian. You can't lie to the audience if you're lying to yourself.
You can't fake emotion.
You can't fake it.
yeah.
Yeah, you can't fake it.
I started getting a little bit more personal, like trying to like just tell stories about being a kid and growing up, like in Scarborough, or whatever. And I realized that before I would always get people come up to me and they were like, "You remind me of one of my friends." That's why I always like got away with a lot of stupid stuff, like just hanging out. But getting personal and telling them stories about like growing up and going to school where I was like literally like pretty much like a minority. You know, it was like people were now like, you were in our circle. You know what I mean? Like it was a different type of connection. Instead of, you remind me of someone I know, it was like, I know you. You know, so that's kind of what he was saying, where he's like the parents and all, right? So.
Yeah, they feel you, man. They know you.